On to forests. So we've had a number of questions submitted with regard to forest protection. So this is an issue obviously locally and internationally in terms of protecting native forest and also restoring logged areas as well, as you mentioned there. So wondering how we best ensure protection for our native forests here in Australia, and wondering if you can also perhaps give an example of best practice in having logging phased out quickly in particular countries and how those logged areas have perhaps been regenerated successfully.
I think actually on this topic, there is real benefit in governments actually having protected area legislation, so that we say these areas are for protection and they are preserved for the future. And so I think there's a strong role for policy in there in actually maintaining. But I also believe more fundamentally that, again, from a legislative standpoint, governments need to say, we're just simply not going to clear anymore. We can't afford to. And I think that if we actually put forward, again, that value, that these are precious and we need to preserve them, with that sort of approach with legislation, that would be fabulous. There are lots of examples where there have been degraded forests, and communities in association normally with forestry-like departments have actually gone about restoring them. And it's an interesting premise too, that if there was a global carbon trading scheme, there is a suggestion that by actually restoring forests and then having that as an ability to offset carbon for particular entities, both communities would derive benefit from that, as well as actually protecting the environment because we're restoring environments. But I think you do need some legislative approach in terms of that issue. And I mean, Tanzania is interesting, where they actually had a remaining forest, and what they've done is that the money that they've got from tourism to visit that forest has meant that they've reduced the land use pressure for agriculture and for the community. So some of the money they make goes to the community and goes to agriculture, so that it's not seen as a conflict either. That seemed to me to be, and seems to be pretty effective, because the other thing, as a tourist, when you go there, you're not allowed to go into large parts of the forest. Well, I think that's probably appropriate too, so that you actually manage the impact in those particular areas. So I think there are probably lots of examples around the globe, probably smaller rather than larger scale. But in the Australian context, I think legislation and protected area legislation helps a lot.